So guys, welcome back to the channel. Feel like I'm kind of turning a new leaf today. I've had this wave of inspiration upon me to try to start making new videos again. But what I will say is, I've been gone off YouTube for a while. I haven't been making any YouTube videos. I've been just trying to focus on getting some things done and catching up on so many things that I had to do. In all honesty, the last 2 years have probably been the roughest years of my life. But without turning this into a sob story, I wanted to try and get back into making some content just purely because I thought some people might actually find what I'm doing helpful. So, just to give a quick update on what's happening, I've had to sell my Land Rover. It was a sad day, but unfortunately, ULEZ and the Mayor of London forced my hand on that one. So my Land Rover has been gone a couple of months now, and although I didn't want to do it, I guess it was inevitable change that was just going to have to be made, and I kind of knew that when I bought it. So that vehicle was always kind of an experiment for me. It was something to have a bit of fun with and just, you know, play around with, and also test out my skills in that, because growing up in Ireland, we always had space to do this kind of work. And ever since moving to London, I've been struggling to find a space. You know, even as you can see now in this small workshop, you know, I'm quite congested. So it was something I wanted to do just to try and get back into doing the things that I enjoyed. Because ULEZ forced me to get rid of my Land Rover, but it enabled me to buy something even bigger. Without saying too much, I'll show you what I'm working on right now. One of the jobs I had to do to this engine, you know, other than a complete rebuild, was the connecting rods. Now I wanted to bring these to an engine reconditioner to reboard the small end bushings for me. So I've pressed them out, pressed in new bushings, and they are then too small, so they have to be rebored to the exact dimension. The reconditioner I normally use is closed for a couple of weeks, and I just don't want to wait any more time, waste any more time on this. So I've been doing this on my milling machine. I was having some issues with this, with run out and getting an egg-shaped hole on it, which I've managed to solve now, and it was actually due to the shaft on this boring head. So I've had to remake that shaft, and now I'm getting perfect circles every time on it. So if you want to come in closer, I'll show you what I'm doing. So on each rod, I've made the centering pin here that goes on the big end. That's a nice tight fit on there. So once it goes on that pin, it holds it relatively flat, let's say, or level, and then it's clamped down to the surface. The table has been trammed in. So all I have to do now is center the machine above the small end here. So the position this way stays the same. That never changes because I've set my rod center to center distance. So all I have to do is tap this rod end back and forth until I'm exactly below the center of the spindle. That bit. So once I've got this rod fairly close to center, I'm going to insert these jacks either side to stop movement, because this is the issue I was having before, was slight movement. Like, you know, you can't actually see the movement or even feel it, but when you put a dial gauge on it, you could see it moving while it was boring. So this has to be locked in either side with the jacks for me to get a perfectly round hole. And sure as hell, once I install these jacks, it's going to move again. So I'll need to check again. So what number am I on there? 4.2. It's on the money. Go with that. That's the same both sides. So you will actually notice with these rods, and one of the things I did notice when stripping these down, the center to center distance should be 230 mil. But
when I checked the old bushings, they were less than that. They were about 229.5 or less. So my piston was receding into the block far too much. So what I'm actually doing with this now, and you'll notice it with the dial gauge, as it spins around, you can see, so I'm, let's say, on 40 or just over 40 on both sides. But then, when I come to the end, you can see, you know, I'm over about 0.15 mil of a difference there. So this is one issue I was having. So I've set the correct center to center distance now. Now, for the fun part. This is how real men are made. Not tired. Right, lock my knee. I'm gonna rough this out and get fairly close, and then we'll set a finer feed speed on it later. We'll start there. We'll take our first cut. Okay, you ready? See, I've set this here. This is 36 mil will be on the zero, and 36.02 mil. That's my absolute minimum clearance that I want. So even if I overshoot this a little bit, I'm still well within spec. You there? Yeah. That's it. See that there? Come down a little more, you've got exactly 0.5 mil to come off that. Okay. Check both ways, make sure we're getting a nice round hole. I started off on 40. I don't know if you can see those. Yeah. But I know this cutter, this boring head is extremely accurate. So I'm up to 150, 0.1 mil off the diameter. 160, 0.2. 170, 0.3. And we'll take a cut of that. So that's a 0.3 mil off diameter. So remember, we started off at 0.5 mil to come off. We'll take off 0.3 and I should be left with about 0.2 mil to come off. So you see we've gone from 0.5 down to 0.2 because we took off 0.3, remember? So just under 0.2. That's good. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So now I'm not going to take off that full 0.2 now because it's guaranteed to overshoot the mark. You know what it always just amazes me. We had 0.5 mil to come off. I've adjusted it to take 0.3. I've got exactly 0.3 off.
Now I need to take exactly 0.2 off. If I adjust that to take exactly 0.2, it'll take 0.25. You know, it just, coming up to that last measurement, you always got to be so careful. So I'm going to take off maybe 0.15 to see where we are. And I'm going to do that on a finer speed as well. Now I'm getting close to my final dimension. Direction feed. There we go. So when we get close to the final dimension, I like to bore on the way back out as well. It does give me a rounder hole and a better finish. So we start our feed on the way out. A small bit of thin lubricant. Bronze can be cut dry, so you don't want to use a thick oil on it. This is very thin. Clean this stuff off. Okay. I have 0.025 to take off. Check here. Same there. I'm just gonna double check this, make sure we haven't bumped it. Yeah. Okay. Now this is where we start getting very close. We start getting into the whole different realm of measurements, because again, so far I've adjusted the boring head and it's taken exactly what I've adjusted it to. Now that we got to take 0.025 mil, if I adjust that to take 0.025, it'll take 0.035 or 0.045. So again, I'm just going to go adjust that to take 0.015. I can nearly guarantee it's going to overcut. Okay, try that. Look how small of a cut this is going to be now. It's just going to scratch the surface. It's like dust coming off it. Okay. Let's take our measurement, see what we've hit. Remember, we had to take out 0.025 or 0.0225. I've adjusted it to take 0.015. Let's see what it actually took. You see that? You see that there? I'm near bang on the zero. A touch over. And remember, I'm setting this to the tight side of spec, so I don't want to be a touch under zero. I mean, I don't want to be under this by right, because I'm already on the tight side of spec. So all I'm going to do with that is just run that again. I'm not even going to adjust it. I'm just going to let it take another pass, a spring pass. Just clean off that cutter. Move it up, and we'll let the machine do its thing again.
We're on the money. That'll do. That'll do. I like it. No. But never mind that. Does the pin fit? You know, I never like measuring with these things at an angle like that. But surprisingly enough, it does give you same measurement. You know, I used to always wind the table down and hold it vertical, give me the exact same measurement every time. So I saved myself all that elbow grease now. Don't do it.
I'm trying to stay quiet for the video. I'm not trying to laugh.
There you go. No movement in it. That's what you want. Exactly what you want. Yeah, perfect. On the money. I like it. Nice. A nice finish. Okay, that's that one done. So now that all the rods are bored, I'm happy with the dimensions and I'm happy with the finish on them. There's 4 here, 2 are already in the block, you know, just for measuring purposes. I put one on cylinder number 1 and one on cylinder number 6, just to measure the projection or recession on the pistons from the top of the block down. But this last rod I kind of got caught out with. I noticed the bushing in this was slightly different. Didn't really think any much of it, you know, it wasn't that much different. Didn't think too much of it. I pressed it out just as all the other ones, and when I went to drop the new one in, it dropped in. And I can't have that. So for that last one, I can see that somebody must have bored this out at some point. Perhaps, you know, the original bore was damaged, or, you know, maybe it spun a bushing in there, or perhaps when they pressed it out they damaged it, so they made a custom bushing. I don't know. All I know is new bushings don't fit, so I need to make a new bushing for this. And what I'm going to use for that is good old bronze, leaded bronze. So I'm going to put this in the lathe, bore it out, get my external dimensions pretty much exact. I've got another piece of this as well. Get my external dimensions exact, leave a nice press fit in there, press it in, and then we're going to leave the internal bore to rough dimensions, and we'll make the final boring on the milling machine so I can get the correct center to center distance again. So before putting that bushing on the lathe, I just want to take the bore of this, check that it's round or fairly round. It doesn't need to be perfect, because this bushing is going to be pressed so tight in there that even if this were slightly oval, now when I say slightly, I'm talking, you know, hundredths of a millimeter. If this were slightly oval, that bushing is going to go from a round into an oval, and then when I bore it again, I'll end up with a perfectly round internal dimension. So we'll set up our bore micrometer. Okay, you can't see that, but somehow we've landed very close to the 0, so I'll just set this to 0, as it's an easy number. And check this in a few places. Zero. Check there at the bottom. 0 at the top. And that is 0.01 mil over just at the top there. And that's 0. Yeah, so that's, I mean, pretty much perfect all round. 0.01 mil out of round. Just at the top here, there's a little bit of wear either here or there. But that's fine, that's not too bad. That'll, the press fit will sort that out. So, we can jump over to the lathe. We can start making that bushing. So here's our measurement of the internal diameter of this set off the bore micrometer, and we are reading 40.02 mil. And I want to press fit on that as well, so I want to add another 0.07 to that. So we'll take that up to 49, 0.075 I want to add. Put there, so that is the external dimension, the external measurement of this bushing. That's what I have to make it. So now that we have the bushing we've just made, we can press this into the rod. As you can see, that won't go down in there. I'm pushing by hand, so we'll have to do that on the hydraulic press. I'll just clean out the inside of that, make sure there's no sharp edges or burrs on it. And the same on this, I'm going to press that in.
A little bit of lubricant on there. And we're ready to go. Beautiful. Yep. Happy with that. Yeah, so the first thing to do to this before boring it out, drill the oil hole. Here we go.
So there we have it, the last one. The custom bush. I'll just wind that down. Haven't actually tried this pin yet, but I'm fairly sure she's going to be good. Here you go. There's no movement in it. Looking good. So now that all the rods are done, I've put each rod onto the matching piston. All the rings, for example, this is piston number 2 because 1 and 6 are in the block already without rings, just so I could check the projection on them. So this is number 2. Number 2 rings have gone into number 2 cylinder, and then check the ring gap and so on. So the ring gap on all these is set. I'm aiming for the tight side of tolerance on these because I like to keep my things on tight side of tolerance and then give my engine time to warm up and not just fire it up and put it straight to work straight away. So I like to keep things on the tight spec. Some people keep it on the loose spec, especially when doing, I guess, customer stuff, because they don't want to run into issues later on. So one of the things I have to do now is install the bearing shells on the big end. They're all in now, and I just got to torque these big ends to spec and check for dimensions. I've been quite lucky on this engine in terms of dimensions, and that everything's been coming out to spec, bar the main bearings in the block. I noticed when I tightened the main bearings to spec on that block, the hole was coming out slightly oval, but that is using the old bolts, which have been stressed and enduring 50 years of use, so they have been stretched to yield already. There's probably no stretch left in those bolts. The next step is breaking. So the old bolts, when torqued to yield, will give me a different result compared to new bolts torqued to yield. So I did try with a new bolt and torque them to the correct specification, and I wasn't getting that oval shaped hole on the main bearings. So that's good. Everything there is in spec. On the crank, the cam has been installed already. You can't see from there, but it is down inside. And there's all the openings for the cam lifters. The cam is installed, the crank is installed and checked and torqued. Pistons, all cylinders are honed now to spec. I had to do a little bit more honing on these after boring them. I left these cylinders quite a bit undersized when I bored with the old boring machine over there, because I wasn't, I've done motorbike cylinders with that boring machine, never set it up on top of a block like this and bored 250mm down. So I wasn't sure if that machine was going to overbore or give me a slightly irregular shaped hole. So I left plenty of honing to do on that, and I regret it because I spent 2 days honing this block. I could have taken it right up to tolerance, because when I checked these holes after boring, they were spot on. There was no deviation in them, there was no taper on them. That boring machine done an absolutely fantastic job. Great machine, and I'm looking forward to using it again on the next block. So I left a lot more honing than I could have left. I could have brought it a lot closer and left myself a lot less work, but it's done now and we're up to spec. So like I said, pistons are ready, rods are done, rings are in, gap is checked. I'm ready to start installing these now very shortly. So you can see now that one is measured. I've used the bore micrometer on this. Now I could use the bore gauge, the same one I've used for doing the small end of the conrods there. But I just don't like the way it scratches the surface of the shells. Now, I mean, when I say scratches, it's ever so slight. It's basically just a change in finish more than a scratch. So when using this, I have to move it around a lot less, which means I don't have to put it in and rotate it around and then scratch the surface. But it does take a lot more patience to get the measurement right using these. You could easily get yourself, 0.02, 0.03 or 4 mil of a difference when measuring with these if you're not careful. So it does take a little bit of practice to be able to measure accurately with them. Now this one, when I measure, I'm measuring about 0.015 mils smaller this way than I am that way, for example. But I'm measuring exactly the same way this way. So 0.015 I'm not worried about on this engine. Even 0.02, 0.03 I'll probably get away with too. But on this engine, for such a big end and such a low revving industrial diesel engine, 0.015 mil I'm not worried about at all. So I'm just going to repeat the process on that for all the other ones, and once I'm good to go, we're going to change them bolts out for new ones, get them in the block and torque them down. So that wraps it up for today, guys. I better get to editing this video to see if I can remember how to do it. Now in the next few videos, hopefully we'll get started on reassembling this engine and putting things like the covers on, the injection pump,
the cylinder head, which has been rebuilt by the way, so I'll try and pull some more videos of that together for you also. So until then guys, thank you for watching, we'll see you next time.
I can go to this angle.
Okay.
That's a good angle because I can see the scale.
Here we're taking the scrotum here.